The rain fell hard against the roof of the train station, each drop echoing like a drumbeat inside her chest. She stood there, clutching a letter that carried the words she had never been brave enough to speak. Her fingers shook as if the paper itself burned, and she wondered for the 100th time if she should just tear it apart and let the truth die with her silence. 4 years of dreams had been folded into those lines, 4 years of hope, love, and promises she thought would never be broken. Yet here she was, alone, watching the clock tick closer to the moment when the train would take her away. The city, lights behind her, glimmered like a world she no longer belonged to, and every sound of laughter or footsteps from strangers only deepened the hollow ache in her heart. She thought about him, his voice, his eyes, the way he used to smile when he believed the world was simple. He was the man who once swore he would never let her go, yet he was also the man who, in her mind, had chosen another life without hesitation. She pressed the letter closer to her chest, whispering a name she dared not say aloud. She didn't know that he too was drowning in questions, that his world was not as perfect as the photographs suggested. She only knew the pain of leaving. Without a word, of stepping onto a train that would take her far from the life she had built in her heart. The secret she carried pressed against her ribs, and with every beat of her heart, it screamed louder. Tonight, she told herself, it would stay hidden. But secrets never stay buried forever. The small apartment smelled faintly of paint and warm milk, a mixture that somehow became her comfort. Nights were long and quiet except for the steady rhythm of 2 small breaths beside her bed. 4 years ago, she had walked away with nothing but determination and the secret that grew heavier inside her each day. Now she lived with the living. Proof of that secret. 2 children who carried his eyes, his expressions, his unspoken presence. Every morning she woke before sunrise, slipping out of bed to prepare their breakfast, packing small bags with hand-me-down clothes, whispering encouragement as she balanced deadlines and diaper changes. She had built her work as a designer from scraps, chasing clients who barely remembered her name, but she never stopped. Every rejection pushed her harder because quitting was not an option. Yet even as she worked tirelessly, the weight of silence followed her like a shadow. She told no one about him, never spoke his name, never admitted the truth that had driven her away. But every time her daughters laughed, the sound was hauntingly familiar, as if the past refused to let go. Sometimes she caught herself staring at them too long, wondering how he would react if he knew. Would he be angry? Would he feel betrayed? Or would he finally understand what she had endured alone? She locked those questions away and kissed her girls goodnight, whispering promises that tomorrow would be brighter. She didn't know that far across the city, his world was beginning to crack, and the walls he trusted were built on lies. The gala shimmered with golden lights and polished marble floors, a world far removed from the quiet nights she had built. She had promised herself she would never step back into his orbit, never allow old wounds to reopen. But fate rarely listens to promises. When her employer insisted she attend to present the design work she had poured her soul into, she had no choice. Dressed in a simple gown she had saved for months to buy, she walked into the glittering hall, her heart beating faster than the music. And there he was. Alexander stood across the room, surrounded by people who admired his every word, his polished smile hiding years of battles no one else could see. For a moment, time stilled. He didn't notice her at first, but when his gaze finally swept across the crowd and landed on her, something inside him shifted. His confident stance faltered, his expression flickered, as if a ghost had appeared in front of him. She quickly looked away, clutching her portfolio tighter, reminding herself why she was there. Yet every step she took made the air heavier, the space smaller, until she felt his presence closing in. He moved through the crowd with a determination that spoke louder than words, his eyes fixed on her as though the past had just walked back into his life. She felt the tremor of her secret press harder in her chest. She prayed the truth would stay hidden, at least for tonight. But destiny was moving faster than she was, and one glance at her children's photograph in her clutch was enough to know that the moment she feared was drawing near. He had spent years convincing himself she was gone, that the chapter had closed. But the sight of her in that crowded hall shattered every lie he had told his heart. The music faded in his ears as he crossed the floor, each step pulled by something stronger than pride or reason. When he finally stood in front of her, the air between them was sharp with unspoken history. "Clara," he breathed, her name leaving his lips like a confession. She froze, every muscle locked in place, unwilling to let his voice unravel the walls she had built. She forced a polite smile, as if he were just another stranger, and tried to turn back toward the stage where her designs awaited. But he reached for her arm, gentle yet desperate, as if he feared she might vanish again if he blinked. His eyes searched hers, hungry for answers, aching with questions he had buried beneath success and duty. For a heartbeat, she let him look, and in that silence, he thought he saw something more. An exhaustion, a love unspoken, a truth carefully hidden. She pulled away quickly, leaving him standing alone with the haunting feeling that the story was not what he had believed. Later that night, when he saw her slip out of the gala early, clutching a worn leather clutch to her chest, curiosity turned into unease. Something about her presence lingered, gnawed at him, refused to let him rest. He had everything money could buy, but suddenly he realized he might have lost the only thing that mattered, and he wasn't ready to let the mystery go this time. Sleep escaped him that night. The echo of her voice, the guarded look in her eyes, replayed in his mind until dawn. He sat in his office staring at the city skyline, but the deals on his desk and the calls waiting on hold meant nothing. For years he had believed a story told to him by someone else, a version of events that fit neatly into the life he thought he had chosen. But seeing her again tore open doubts he had buried beneath ambition. He needed to know why she had vanished. Without a word, why her gaze still carried the weight of something unspoken. Days later, a chance encounter delivered the first crack in the wall of lies. One of his oldest employees, a woman who had once worked closely with Clara, slipped a truth she hadn't meant to share, that Clara had left the city suddenly, heartbroken, and had never accepted help from anyone. The words hit him harder than he expected. He began to look, quietly, carefully, tracing the life she had lived while he was blinded by luxury and headlines. What he found unsettled him. A modest apartment, long hours of freelance work, a quiet resilience that spoke of battles fought alone. And then came the discovery that stole the breath from his lungs, a photograph left behind in a client's office. Two little girls with blue eyes that mirrored his own, smiling innocently at the camera. His hand shook as he held the image, the truth slamming into him with unstoppable force. The secret she had carried for years was no longer hidden. It was alive, it was real, and it was his. Rain tapped against the windows as he stood outside her apartment door, the photograph burning in his pocket like a truth too heavy to carry alone. His chest tightened with every second he waited, torn between fear and hope, between anger and love. When the door finally opened, she stood there in the soft glow of a lamp, her hair messy from the long day, her eyes tired yet steady. For a moment, words failed him. Then his gaze shifted, and he saw them. Two small figures on the couch, giggling at a cartoon, their laughter a sound so achingly familiar, it brought him to his knees. Clara's breath caught as she realized what he had seen, the very thing she had fought for years to protect. Silence filled the space, heavy and fragile. "Why didn't you tell me?" His voice cracked, not with rage, but with something deeper, rawer. She held herself tall, even as her heart pounded. "Because you chose a life without me. Because I thought the truth would only break us both." His eyes glistened, shame flickering through him as the lies of the past finally unraveled. He took a step closer, every part of him trembling as the girls turned their curious faces toward him. They didn't know him, but in their eyes he saw the undeniable reflection of his own. He whispered softly, as though speaking to the universe itself, "I lost 4 years I can never get back. But I won't lose another moment." In that instant, the secret was no longer a burden. It was a bridge, fragile yet strong, leading them all toward a new beginning that none of them could have imagined.